And good day, good night. Welcome to Five Rings Daily. It's day one, Duane. It's finally underway for real this time with pretty much a full day of competition that wrapped up. It's actually still going on. Ski jumping is finishing still now, late in the evening in Pyeongchang. We have a Canadian that's actually doing pretty good. He's going to jump in the finals. He's probably jumping as we speak, but he is doing more than expected, so that's positive. But a full day of competition. Duane, before we get into a snowboard versus a sport versus culture discussion, I want to have your overall thoughts on your experience living 14 hours in the future for the first time.
What day is it? Hello, is this thing on? Yeah, look, I'm still sort of, I have jet lag, I think is how you would put this. Without going anywhere, I have now jet lag. But we'll figure this out, and by the end of these Olympics, I'll be struggling to get back on Canadian time, on Eastern Conference time. I told you I have jet lag, so that's pretty much where I'm at, but it was fun.
You can listen to us live every day at 10 a.m. if you're listening to this on podcast at youtube.com/sports podcasting network, and you can give us a hand to make sure we can do those live shows. A lot of investment has been made over the last few months into the preparation of this and the World Cup this summer. With your help, we can do even more. Patreon.com/sports podcasting network. Together, we can create even bigger network of contacts in the world of Olympics and soccer and other sports. Duane, before we move into our medals, SlopeStyle caught our attention late last night Eastern Time, early morning Pyeongchang, with the great performances of the Canadians. We're talking about Max Barrot, we're talking about Seb Toots, Sébastien Toutin, talking about Mark McMorris and Tyler Nicholson as well, which he fell in his first run, first move he did at the Olympics, fell on his rear end. Got back up, second run, qualified for the final. That is tonight. But it caught our attention, and it brought me back, Duane, to a documentary that we saw about Mark McMorris, his injury that was terrible last March, but as well as a few articles that I've read yesterday. And it goes a bit like this, talking about the difference of approach and training that a Max Sparrow versus a Mark McMorris have, and the type of lifestyle that both live that makes for great snowboarders. Both are pretty good and I would say equal at this point, but it's so different and it's fascinating to me.
No, absolutely. If you go back to our very earliest shows together, in Sochi, when we talked a lot about this. I remember, especially when we were talking about SlopeStyle and the half pipe, which we'll see later on, how the snowboarding world is still very much caught between two worlds. They have what I would call the traditional old school snowboarders, which have a counterculture sort of idea, the X game guys that like to go out, like to get N factor, they'll call it, which means gnarly, which doesn't even start with an N, but we'll leave it at that. And they like to go big, and they like to go hard, and they like to get powder, and they like to get on the mountain, and they like to live a lifestyle. They're very much part of that in the Olympics. They've accepted the Olympics are part of that. They understand the importance of it. They enjoy them for their own, but they're still kind of there, and they're going to get there on their own merits and their own way. They're going to do things their way, right? And then you have a new breed, which are coming up, that are athletes that approach the sport like athletes, and they train like athletes. And in this particular case, Perot, the skater that's more the athlete here, or the snowboarder that's more the athlete here, he likes to get on the trampoline, and he likes to be very precise, and he approaches the things in a very sports science kind of way. Whereas McMorris, he likes to go out and make big jumps on powder and film it and sort of live that professional snowboarding kind of world. So it's a very fascinating dichotomy. Both are working in this case, as you say, because they're both great. They could finish 1-2 for sure in this final. And there's
any day it could be any of them, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you can see the difference out there a little bit. McMorris is, in fact, a little bit more spectacular, for lack of a better words, but Perot is more precise. He's really good on the rails. He lands his tricks better, cleaner. He's tighter in the air, but he doesn't maybe go as high and as big as McMorris. And then the combination, it's really fascinating to watch for sure.
And it's more than just how they ride, it's literally how they live their life. McMorris, and he will travel the world following his desire, his friends, whatever his sponsors is. He is a professional snowboarder, and whatever that entails, he does. It's not just about competition, it's about representing your filming, shooting movies, all that culture, that lifestyle, designing boards, all those things. That's what he does. And it does take some time, and it does bring you to like risk. There's a risk factor, just the backcountry accident. And I know we're talking too much about this, and after the crash, he now says he's moved on, he's past it physically, and he wants to be past it mentally, and he keeps being asked about the same question. But still, the risk that he took could have destroyed an Olympic moment or an Olympic chance potential. He's one of the favorites, and that accident almost cost him that chance. And it's a lifestyle accident too. It's an environment that a Max Perot never put himself in. He never really snowboard in a backcountry type of way, and that's not his prerogative. He's looking at it more of sports, and he had talent in snowboard, but his dream was to get to the Olympics, and he literally is riding to win. The goal for Max Perot is to win. Riding is the journey to the end of winning. For a Mark McMorris, it's the other way around. He's winning so then he can continue to ride for the rest of his life without worrying about money, sponsors, or anything else. It's about achieving the highest pinnacle as a pro snowboarder. And those two things are completely opposite, but both successful. And it's kind of inspiring in a way that it does show you, and that's going to be a little bit deep for 10 a.m. this morning, but it's going to show you that there's not one true way to achieve success. Whatever you believe can be the right way.
Yeah, look, you're right in terms of McMorris is going to the Olympics to help make him more marketable as a backcountry big trick film superstar in the snowboarding world. And for years that was really all that was out there, and I just got distracted by a massive jump in the ski jump that we just saw there. But at any rate,
it was pretty damn big. When you're crossing that flashing green light, you're when it's flat or going up, you're deep.
Yeah, that was a big jump. Anyway, we'll maybe talk about that tomorrow if we want to put it in our melts tomorrow. But at any rate, don't go back to that. I remember back, Kevin, I was in college in 2006 during the Turin Olympics. And at that time, I had a classmate who was a snowboarder that had some success. He had some sponsorship. He was a decent snowboarder, not anywhere near an elite world-class snowboarder, more like a North American class. He filmed some stuff. He was more of a guy that held the camera out there for the guys that were really getting on shots. At any rate, that was my take on him anyway. But we talked a lot about this because I'm a big Olympic freak, obviously, and snowboarding was in the Olympics, and this was something we could talk about. And he was very dismissive of the Olympics, and he was very dismissive of snowboarders that were going that way. And Perot, if you listen to him talk sometimes, will sort of let that out a little bit, that there are people that view his way of approach to the sport, people on the snowboarding filming side that will look down their nose at that because they'll say, well, that's not snowboarding, because that divide really does still exist, although it is increasingly getting further and further away. Back then he would have been looked at as a freak, right?
Well, there's still a rivalry, and when I'm saying rivalry, I'm not saying between Perot or McMorris. It's not what I mean, but there is a divide in the world of snowboarding, and what we have been told, what I've been told and what I've seen, there is the Max Perot, which I'm not saying he's alienated, I'm not saying he's an outcast, but there is a difference of how they approach. There is a difference of a McMorris, and I'm just using McMorris because he's the example we're talking about here, but there's a lot more, and I'm not saying one's right and I'm not saying one's wrong, but there's the aspect of McMorris. Just look at how both answered the questions after the race. McMorris was talking about how he's having a blast and he's rooming with some great friends and he's gonna enjoy and have fun, rest and sleep until the next one, but fun and enjoying and laughing with his teammates was high in his priorities. And for Max Perot, the way he was talking about it, he was like, well, I'm going to see my physio. I need 3 massages. I need this done to be ready for tomorrow morning. So 10 a.m. PyeongChang time, 8 p.m. tonight for us. So even in the way they answer questions, you kind of see that difference of a pro athlete on one side. And I'm not trying to say that snowboarders are not athletes. That's not what I'm saying. It's just to use terms here. You see the answer of like almost a trained pro athlete in the way to answer questions in a Max Perot, and you see a snowboarder really having a great time, pro snowboarder really having a great time, and just being himself. And there's a bit of difference, not saying that Max Perot is not himself, but his approach and how he sees what he does is totally different as a whole. And that is kind of crazy, and both leads to be able to take risks, both leads to be able to have great performances. And you do have a certain amount of differences though in there's the ability, and we're talking about fluidity here. And there's one thing McMorris does in a way that's different for Parrot is the chaining of the moves or the actual grabs and the flips, and it's how he's able to fluidly chain them together, and he's kind of like a bit more clean, but still it's incredible for me to see that 2 totally completely different approaches can still result in maybe two medal winners.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And if we're going to look at a long-term Olympic career, I will almost guarantee you that Perot will be the one that will come back for multiple Olympics. So, if his body holds up. Whereas McMorris, he wins a gold medal, he's probably going to fade off into the world of filming and things like that. Maybe he'll come back, maybe he won't. But then again, people can change too. Look at Shaun White, which we'll talk about later. I think he would have been. I know he would have been far more on the McMorris side of things back in 2004, 5, 6, 7, around those years when he was just cruising to stuff and building a snowboarding brand and was on top of the world and was on talk shows and everything else. And now if you watch, there's a great documentary that's out there of him trying to get back to the Olympics for one final time, and he pulled it off in his very last qualifying run and got a perfect score on his very last qualifying run to qualify for the U.S. team. And it was very much the difference between, a 31-year-old man that was now approaching his sport as a sport with sports science and surrounding himself with people to try and make himself better, and was, living a calm lifestyle rather than going out there and going big in big backcountry snow and all that sort of jazz. Shaun White still probably has a bit of that in him, but nonetheless, he's approaching the life a little bit differently, as you do when you get older sometimes. And then you see, these guys like McMorris who almost get themselves killed a year out of the Olympics because they can't get that out of them. And you know what? I think that's great about the sport, and I hope it never changes because there is something nice and refreshing about
crazy
the approach.
Crazy and insane, but nice and refreshing as well.
Yeah, and I mean, look, they have in many ways. You could argue. You can argue both sides of this, I think. Like, I can look at Perot and I can go, I hope he beats McMorris. McDavid. McMorris.
Yeah, no.
Why do we have 2 like high-end with you anyway? Who should be at these Olympics, but we'll talk about that when the men's hockey tournament starts. Exactly. Right? You kind of hope that maybe Perot beats him because he's put so much effort into it. It matters more. The Olympic gold medal matters more to him than just going big and going hard. Whereas at the same time, you can go, it's kind of fun that you like the lifestyle, and that's what you love about snowboard and the bigness and all that. And we're seeing a very emotional German snowboarder here, Wellinger.
Well, he's the one who he just won the ski jump. He did a crazy jump, 135 points. He did like over 117 meters. Anyways, he landed where there was no more hill. It was literally a hill going up. That's where he landed. But we'll talk about this maybe later. He's not in our medals today because it's just wrapped up. But to finish on that snowboard sport versus culture discussion, the one point that really made sense and resonated to me in my analytical, pragmatical way of looking at training, Duane, is the one quote here by Max Perot saying, look, when you're going backcountry or just training outdoors or just training on a hill, every jump you do, or every run you do, you got to take the chairlift back up and do it all over again. So you might do 15 jump an hour if you're lucky. And if there's not too much of a crowd, and if all the conditions are okay. On a trampoline during the summer months, you can do 15 jumps a minute and get that form, get that cleanliness in the air, and get that space awareness. We're talking about being able to tell where your head is when you're flipping around in the air, which is sky, which is ground, which is side, which is I can land there, which is no, not here. And you have that big difference of being able to do so more repetitively when you're training the way a Max Sparrow does.
No, precise. He's right too, and I caught that too. The trampoline versus the snowboarding way, and that's the area where a guy like McMorris and that side of this debate, this culture, they'll never get pro in this comments because it's not worth it to them to sacrifice being out on the mountain just to get a little bit more precise. But you really can tell the difference when you're out there, like I said. And McMorris is a freak of nature. If he did have that same, this is where my sort of bias comes out here. I think if McMorris had the same sort of training approach that Perreault did, he would probably be untouchable because his raw skills are such. But Perreault is able to overcome a little bit of the of maybe a lack of not to say he isn't skilled, because they're both immensely skilled, but in terms of like the raw ability, I think Perreault has to work on it a little bit harder, but he does work on it a lot harder, and that's why heading into the final, these guys are 1 and 2 in terms of their qualifying claims. So this is an interesting debate. It sort of speaks to, like I said, the interesting divide and why these X game sports have added so much to these games. I know there's a lot of old fogies that are out there that that sort of go, hey, man, I don't like this, man. They're increasingly getting older and older and older, and maybe they're just not hearing them anymore. But certainly when they first came in, and I think about this, there's a debate going on, Kevin, now because they're in Korea, which is the most popular place in the world for esports. There's an esports tournament that's going on at the same time right now.
Yeah, there was.
I think to myself, you can't have esports in the Olympics. That doesn't make any sense. But I'm sure there's people that are like 12, 13 right now that when they get older will be, why isn't esports in the Olympics? And they'll be saying the same thing, and I'll be the old man going that.
You can't have esports into the Olympic until we have an actual video game about the Olympics that's worthy of being called this. So until that happens, I agree with you. Before we take a quick break and move on to our medals, Duane, one of my medal locks failed. Finished 4th. Camille Stock, I'm disappointed. Had a lot of faith in you. And the wind did not go in your favor.
No, precisely. I watched that play out there today, too. That was a massive jump. Like, that's crazy, that jump. Even the lay. I'm not a ski jumping expert by any means. There are sports in these winter games which I am comfortable talking to anyone in the world about. I would bow to anyone when it comes to ski jumping knowledge, but even my naked eye went, wow, that was big.
You know when the guy lands and he's freaking out that he did something big. We'll be right back with our medals of the day. Patreon.com/sportspodcasting network. $1 a month goes a long way. With your support, with your pledge, we're able to continue to give you what you need during those Olympics. The longest running Olympic podcast since 2014. The only good thing that ever came out of Sochi. And Duane, we're back. We're going to start with, which is now what has become my favorite medal, and I think it has been the case for a lot of our listeners too. It is time for the poutine medal.
Standing.
You're standing.
I think they. Yeah. I love that little. It's if you want to find that, it's under YouTube under Techno O Canada. That's how I found that. Anyway.
Yeah. Poutine medal for day 1 of the PyeongChang 2018 Olympic Games. Our 3rd poutine medal already.
And if you're listening to us for the first time, the poutine medal it's a little bit of we don't like to define it too much, but it's kind of the unsung Canadian performance of the day, or the gutsiest Canadian performance of the day, or just something about a Canadian performance that we think needs a little bit more of attention than it's getting. So it's not necessarily a medal. It probably won't even be a medal all tournament to be our all Olympics, to be honest. Yeah. But today, the name, I think we agreed on this one, right, Kevin?
Yes, we do. We do. Sam Edney, luge. By the way, luge, what's with the stubble? And what's with every luger looking the same? Is it because that helmet is so tight that it squeezes everybody's face and then we all look the same? I don't know, but Spandex and Stubble should be the name of a podcast.
Spandex and Stubble. Yeah, very good. Yeah, no, 5th place after the 2 runs. I don't think he was expected to quite go that high. The luge program is in a bit of a rebuilding phase. The sliding program outside of the bobsled is in a bit of a rebuilding phase right now too, although there's medal chances on the skeleton side as well. But yeah, a very good run, very solid performance by the Canadian. All the Canadians too. The young kid, the 18-year-old kid that's there that basically is there for experience for Beijing. He in top 10 in the first run, fell down a little bit after that. I believe he's in 12th right now. So overall, the Canadian luge team had a good morning, even though they probably won't end up in the medals. I think that the performance by Edney on what is a very strong field, the Germans are very, very good in this right now, is worth looking at and worth celebrating. So our poutine medal this day goes to Sam Edney, and with a little nod to the rest of the Canadian luge team that are kind of rebuilding and looking to the future. So good for them, and hopefully Sam can match his performance in the next 2 runs and stay in that 5th place. It's hard to catch up on the second day. We've seen it before, but it really usually involves mistakes by those above you.
But he's not too far. If he could, that's the thing. 5th, you're kind of still in contention. So you're at least there. So it's still optimistic. And even the top 5 in the world of luge, which is an exclusive world, just like ski jump, it is impressive.
Yeah, if you can go move up 1 spot per round. Bronze is probably your high mark when you're in 5th place when you're after 2 runs. But if you can move up 1 spot per run, then yeah, you're sitting in the bronze medal position, and that would be remarkable. But regardless, it's pretty good. And even if he finishes 5th, the older I get, the more I appreciate those like top 10s and all those performances. When I was like young, I was like, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, now we appreciate
second place is first loser. Yeah, that sort of stuff.
Now we appreciate the 4-year effort, the 4-year dedication and discipline, because we're like, yeah, I'm older than him, and I can't even imagine myself doing this. So yeah, we do see this happen now. So now. From positive, from poutine, from tasty, juicy, and salty, and kind of good. I'm hungry now. We're going to kind of boring. We're going to the wood medal. We're going to our less favorite moment, our disappointment, or just something that we don't agree with, or whatever it is, but our non-good thing that happened today. Wood medal, Duane. What is your wood medal for day 1?
Real quickly before I say it, just let the listeners know that Kevin and I, we don't know what each other's medals are. Typically, yes. We like to just surprise each other with it. So sometimes they might end up being the same. Sometimes, I might say something's a bronze that Kevin has as a gold, but that's how we like to do it. So my wood medal, Kevin, is the development of the Swedish women's hockey program since their surprise silver medals in Turin.
What development?
Well, that's just it. When they won the silver medal in Turin, everyone said, okay, well, this makes sense. Then this is good for the women's sport because they had this upset medal, and they're going to be able to build on that, and they're going to be able to match the great performance of their men's program, but yet they've stagnated. They did beat Japan 2-1 yesterday, but Japan charitably has not been very good in this sport traditionally, and you would expect them to beat Japan. You would have expected them to beat Japan much more solidly than they did. So they get the win in their, well, they're more to the point, they're in Pool B. They're playing Japan. That tells you all you need to do, because the way the women's hockey tournament works, Kevin and listeners, is that you have your top 4 ranked countries in the world in Pool A. They are advanced already to the playoff round. They are playing for seeding and for buys through the quarterfinal right now. Top 2 will go to the semis immediately. The next 2, so A3 and A4, will play B1 and B2 in the quarterfinals. That's how the tournament works. So there are 4 teams, the bottom 4 ranked teams, which includes Sweden, playing in Pool B. Top 2 will advance to the quarterfinals, where they will play the bottom 2 in Pool A. So the fact that Sweden's in there tells you everything. But the point making. And the commentator hinted to this. We are in 2018, and there's a lot of cultural shifts happening right now, and we know what those are when it comes to women and it comes to equality and all those sort of good things. And the Olympic movement is trying to get to a position where there are equal participants between men's and women's in the games. There's only one sport left that only has women or does not have women in it. That is Nordic combined, for the record. So we're getting there slowly but surely. But the Swedish hockey team, when you look at the amount of resources that goes into the men's hockey program in Sweden, you would think that maybe they would get a bit more. And the commentator on the game last night sort of implied that. Didn't outright say it, because you got to be polite a little bit. And when you're broadcasting for under the IOC, they might slap your wrist if you aren't. But it was pretty clear what she was saying. It's that why aren't they putting more resources on behind this team? And they're falling behind. They're now to the point where they have to battle tooth and nail with a country like Japan that is not from a traditional hockey market, that lost games. I put a tweet out last night when the first Olympic Games, Kevin. Well, I'll hold that because I might be talking about them in a minute. So I'll let you go on and give you your wood medal first.
My wood medal goes to stupid freaking video assisted refereeing that keeps following me wherever I go lately. I go to see an all-star game in Chicago. I'm stuck in, okay, it was fun, but still, I'm stuck learning about it. I'm watching my Olympic, one of my favorite sports, short track, speed skating, fun thing. And after every damn heat or damn race, people are celebrating, but it's kind of subdued. Everybody turns their attention to the TV screen and to the refereeing, judging, and looking at the screen and making sure, can I celebrate? No, yes, no. Takes the whole fun out of it, takes the whole joy out of it, takes the moment where you spread your leg, you reach, you're trying to cross the line with your blade first. You fist pump, but you're not sure, so you just watch the little thing, you watch the screen. Yeah, it's annoying. And the amount of penalties, things you can do, things you can't do. Some races, some heat, the same thing is allowed, and the heat after, the same thing is penalized. It is a bit difficult all the time for me to consistency of judgment and consistency of results in short track. And it's not saying it's a farce, but it's literally taking the instinct of celebrating out of the skaters, and that's kind of a shame.
No, for sure. I kind of want to give a medal to this the gentleman in the ski jump with his mustache there, but that's aside.
Johansson from Norway. I thought about it. He's my honorable mention today. Let's just put it this way. Wow, it's a glorious mustache, twirling and all.
It's curl. Yeah, got the twirl up at any rate. Yeah. No, VAR. Well, a replay in general is drives me nuts. I call it like rule purity. There's an obsession in the world for what rule purity. It's a little different in short track in the sense that they're looking for infractions that you can't really see with the naked eye, and they kind of let the race play out. So it's been around there forever. But yeah, it is creeping into every sport seemingly, and I am a big advocate for it to be creeping less, that we need to sort of accept human error in team sports especially, and allow accept the idea that sometimes referees miss calls, and that, especially amongst people that are younger than me, for some reason they just can't, because they've grown up with a replay in their life the whole time. And I grew up for a long period of time where replay did not exist in sports.
So I blame the NFL and the NHL for this. It's because of those two leagues that we got this everywhere now. But anyways.
Yeah, no, there are people that if you're 20, 21 years old right now listening to this, you can't comprehend the idea that you would accept an error. We just did, and it became part of the lore. And, maybe that sucks if your team or your country is the one that got, hit by it. But the reality is sometimes mistakes happen. And it's, to me, the momentum and that losing that joy of the moment is hard to you can't have that back. Like, it's different to, you win an Olympic gold medal after a 10-minute video review. Yeah, it's not quite the same.
It's anticlimactic a lot. Anyways, that's my wood medal for today.
All right. My bronze medal, Kevin, and I sort of implied it. It was the play of Japan last night in women's hockey. I turned into that game.
Duane, the first time this year, we got the same bronze medal. I got the same thing. I got Japan women's hockey team. That's my bronze medal.
There you go. All right. So we have a consensus here. Consensus Claxon. Look, I remember it was during a lull, like it was a mid-afternoon lull in PyeongChang. That was called Sochi. So I was like, oh, there's nothing on really. And I went, oh, yeah, the hockey game's on. So I'll put it in the background. And if it's really kind of bad, I'll just maybe have a nap for a couple hours so that I can, have a second win for when it gets crazy at the second half of the night. Like from about 5 a.m. on, there's like 16,000 things going on, right? So I was prepared for that. And then I turned the damn game on and I couldn't take my eyes off it. It was so fast and it was so competitive and it was compelling. And Japan was outplaying Sweden throughout this competition. They did not win. They lost 2-1. So it might seem odd to people that we're giving the bronze medal of the day to a team that lost. But when you consider where they were 20 years ago, when they were in that first Olympic women's hockey tournament, I have the scores. You ready for them? These are the scores of Japan 20 years ago in the 1998 Winter Olympics. They opened up with a 13-0 loss to Canada. Followed that up with an 11-1 loss to Finland. Then they lost 6-1 to their Asian counterparts, China. 10-0 to the United States. And that same Swedish team, they lost 5-0 to back then. They were outshot.
45-1. 45-1 on aggregate.
Yeah,
there you go.
Two. They scored two. But yeah.
45-2.
Because they scored against China and against Finland. They were outshot on aggregate 242-38.
Jeez.
That was 20 years ago. And they sort of, after their initial appearance in the Olympics, which they got as the host, obviously, China at that time was the best team in Asia. They said, okay, well, now we know what this sport is, and now we have to build towards it. And they disappeared out of the Olympics the next time around. They weren't around in 2002, and they weren't around in 2006. But they got back after that. They weren't around 2010 either. They got back in 2014 in Sochi after a long rest away, and they did okay. They did better, I should say, but they were still a long ways behind. And then yesterday, my God, it was like a different team. And as I said, I turned into that game half-heartedly. I've watched, I'm not going to lie, Pool B in women's hockey has been hard to watch in the past. There's a reason they split the top teams up from the bottom teams. It's because they wanted to avoid those 11-0, 12-0 games. At the Asia game, Japan itself, at the Asian Winter Games, Kevin, they beat Hong Kong in a very close one. You want to know what the score of the game versus Hong Kong was in the Asian Winter Games?
Yep.
46-0.
Jesus.
Anyway.
40.
Can you imagine watching that? So that
3 periods of 20 minutes, correct? Same
yes,
game that we're
exactly.
Okay, just like a goal every 30 seconds.
That's not even comprehensible how that's possible.
Is there enough time in the game to score 46 goals from face up? Anyways, it's crazy.
It's almost a challenge. I'm not sure that you can score that with an open net, but
let me start off NHL 18. Let me put it at really easy, and let me take on that challenge. I might do that before I go to bed. No. Got some steep PyeongChang 2018 to play. All right, let's move because this is our first consensus. So, see, it was bound to happen, as Duane was mentioning a bit earlier. We don't know each other's medals. We have a consensus. We decided to agree. That word. That started with a C. And we decided to agree on the poutine medal every day because it's easier to give one poutine medal. So we're doing this. You can't share a poutine. It's too good. So that's why. But we do have a surprise for each other, and we just surprised each other with a Japan women's hockey team bronze medal on day one of the Olympics. Yeah, talking about only place on earth you'll get this. It's Five Rings Podcast. Your silver medal for day one, Duane.
I'm going back to my curling, folks, and it's just the way that the Caitlin Laws and John Morris team is rolling now. We talked about them already a lot because, simply put, they were the only thing going on. Also, I watch curling a lot, and I will continue to watch curling throughout these tournaments. They will, when a curling match is on, unless there is a gold medal final of great excitement, I will be watching the curling match primarily through it. But so curling is going to have a lot of my medals are going to be curling throughout this. You've been warned. Caitlin Laws and John Morris are not traditional mixed doubles performers. As I said yesterday's show, they are rugby union players that are learning rugby league. But they've learned it, and their skill is so much better than their contenders right now. And this is an interesting sort of evolution, and it's going to be interesting to see what the evolution of mixed doubles is over the next 4 years. Now that it's been in the Olympics and it's in everyone's mind, and some of these elite curlers on the team side of thing will start to look from around the world. We'll start to look at what Laws and Morris are doing, because right now it is hard to imagine them not winning the gold medal. Norway was the team that took them out in the first match. It was the very first match of the Olympics, so how much of a measure that is, we're not sure. However, Norway has rolled pretty good since then. Both of those teams have now clinched a spot in the medal round, so
Norway
we'll probably get to see that again.
Made himself famous since Torino, I believe, but at least for sure Vancouver with their very fancy and quite amazing wardrobe decisions. Talking about the flashy pants they've been wearing. So yes, there's that aspect, but they've been pretty decent as well in the international level of curling. So it could be something, but it could be as well just Laws and Morris getting to know each other on the ice, getting to know how to take advantage of their skills versus this type of game. And again, watching some mixed curling last night, Duane, there was about 7 rocks or 6 rocks in a 4 feet radius. It was impressive. And then exactly, it is a different way, and it is fun to watch. And I just have the image of Morris throwing his rock, just getting up like it's nothing, brushing a little bit, getting back up. Oh no, I missed my shot, but I kind of still made 2 points, so it doesn't matter. The skill set is really high.
Yeah, 2 games left in the round robin. There are 7. Each team will play 7 times right now. There's only 1 game left in this. With 1 game left, Canada has clinched a spot in the medal round. The lowest they could finish. Well, they could still go as low as 4th, technically, if it gets into a massive tie, but just trying to think who they have to play yet. So they only have to play South Korea yet, and you would expect them to win that game. So they will likely finish on top of that round robin schedule. They will then play whoever ends up 4th in the battle royale between Norway, OER, and Switzerland right now, with China still having a chance to come up. But yeah, they are playing out of their head, especially Caitlin Laws, who is, as I said, the pound for pound, the best curler in this tournament so far. And couple more games left in this, hopefully there's 3 more games left for John Morris and Caitlin Laws. 2 of them will involve the curling for a medal or the gold medal if they were to win that second one from now. So yeah, exciting stuff. And I'm going to miss mixed curling when it's gone. I'm going to I kind of want to see more. I want to see them, like, they should add a men's and a women's doubles event as well next Olympics. I think we should get this going on. I don't think they'd have to build another facility if they were to do that, but it's exciting, and you
can have like a never-ending curling tournament at the Olympics. It starts 3 weeks before the Olympics, and it finishes 5 weeks after.
If they ran if they were to add those 2, that's the only other 2 events you could have a men's and a women's doubles tournament as well. But they would pretty much have to have curling running 24/7 throughout the Olympics.
Yeah,
for that to get
shifts. Done. Like, all right, you're on a curling shift, it's 8 hours. Then anyways, moving to my
you'd have them go on.
All right, moving to my silver. My silver is actual silver medal, but this woman athlete became the most decorated ever Olympian winter athlete on the women's side. Merit Bjørgen from I can't read my writing, of course, but here, let me get it in front of me. I want to mention at least her country of origin. She's, of course, from Norway. In cross-country skiing, it was the 15-kilometer skiathlon, which is 7.5 of classic to start, and then they switch skis and they do 7.5 of skating, and she finished second to the Swedish Charlotte Kalla. But with that silver medal, Merit Bjørgen now has 11 total medals, 6 gold, 4 silver, and 1 bronze, for the most ever in the history of the Winter Olympics. And that's one of the great stories in day one for me, and that is my silver medal of the day.
Yeah, and certainly one of the stories of that skiathon was the fact that the Swedes got the better of their Norwegian rivals again. And there's a bit of it's almost like the U.S.-Canadian women's hockey rivalry, in the sense that the Norwegians dominate World Championships and on the World Cup, but somehow the Swedes always get them at the Olympics. So there was more of that with the Swede.
Oh, the way it happened, it was kind of interesting too, because Kalla did not want to take the initiative early on in the part of the second half of the trial of the skiathlon. So when it's the skating part, She was at the top. She was almost first at one point, and she laid off, and she let the other ones go forward. Bjorgen was one of those, and the Finns have finished third too. But they might have overexerted themselves just a bit, and Kala caught back and was able to finish a bit stronger in one of the last climbs with about 1.5 kilometers to go and never looked back, and was able to almost easily win this one. But Bjorgen second is not a bad performance at all, and it is fun to watch those mass start cross-country skiing event where you literally have a cycling tactic, but on top of we're talking about Parmakoski here, the Finnish who finished third. I know, it's not my fault. It's like when I'm talking about the Montreal Impact and they make an impactful play, there's a pun that is not intended in there. But this Finnish athlete, Parmakoski, had great skis on the day. We're talking about the wax. And according to Becky Scott, who was on the broadcast, some performances in the Olympic are almost 50% above the wax. If on the day your wax team does a great job, you will perform. And we have seen this with the performances in the skiathlon of all the medal winners, but especially Parmakoski, too, according to some experts, wasn't necessarily a podium favorite, but she got herself a bronze medal. But still, my silver, Merit Bjorgen.
Yeah, it must have been because I didn't have a good wax team, why I was never able to break into the world-class level.
That's the only reason, Duane. Only reason.
That and the lack of training. I did have cross-country skis as a kid because I lived literally beside a trail that you could. Well, it was more of a where I lived. It was dangerous to cross-country ski on the trail because you might get hit by a snowmobile. But at any rate,
I never got cross-country skiing because I was a lazy kid, and I was like, yeah, well, I have to do some efforts on this. While the other one I can just go down a hill. Which one am I going to choose? No wonder I was a fat kid.
There was a tiny little bump. That's pretty much all I did is I would climb up to the top of that bump and I would ski back down it again. I didn't cross country ski a lot, but I kind of miss it now. I was thinking about that yesterday. I wish I had cross country skis now. I'd go skiing right today if I could, because I'm very inspired by all these athletes. There's a hockey rink around the corner. I might go skating this afternoon if I aren't sleeping.
Yeah,
but there's good chance of that.
Oh, sleeping. I'm gonna go sleep very soon though. Oof, it's been I feel jet lagged too. All right, let's move to the plat de résistance of the day, Duane. The gold medal. Your gold medal.
All right, my gold medal goes to the damn Dutch. The Dutch.
We got another consensus.
The sweep of that. Well, they won 4 medals in 2 minutes. And now that was, just happenstance that there was two events going on simultaneously. The women's 3,000 meters long track speed skating ended just moments after the 1,500 meter short track final ended. And in the short track final, Stenk Kent, it's a very hard word to say for my English tongue, but he won the silver medal there.
In the words of Chance the Rapper in Saturday Night Live, that's a S, a J, and an N, and a K, so that's a no.
Stinkat is what it is, but at any rate, and that's our English mouths don't do that well. But anyway, silver medal there, which was only the second time that they won short track medal at the Olympics, which means that they're starting to get short track, which should scare the hell out of the rest of the short track world.
Yeah. Because they have Canada. It was fun while it lasted.
Yeah. But on the long track, which they figured out for a long time, and in Sochi, they swept like 4 podiums in Sochi, and they have one here as well.
Okay, so you want me to try? Are you going to say the names, or am I? All right, fine. I'll sacrifice myself. I'll sacrifice my reputation.
Herdekik is the gold medal.
Well, Caroline Herdekik, that's not too bad. Irene Fust and Antoinette de Jong. Hey, that wasn't too bad.
Well, de Jong, I know de Jong because that's a pretty common name, but look, they just were dominant. That was an event, and I watched that one pretty closely because there was a Canadian contender in it who finished, I believe, 5th or 6th. I'd have to go look.
And the other Canadian finished 7th. Evgeny Blondin finished 6th, and the other Canadian 7th.
And it was a bit of a disappointing performance for them. The Czech woman who was a silver medalist in Sochi, she was in 4th in the very last skate. That was the only person who really had a chance at the end to knock them off the podium sweep. They're unstoppable. They know how to train for the Olympics now, and it's almost become like a Dutch match meet. There used to be back in the days watching the like the Alpine events when the Austrians were winning everything, where they would have, great intention was being put to the training runs because they would bring more athletes and they could ski down the race on ski day because they'd have like 10 guys that could win the gold medal, and they would have, award the 3 spots to their top performers in the training runs. So the training runs were almost like qualifiers for the Austrian team. That's almost like what this is now. Like there's probably 6 other Dutch women that could have finished top 10 out there, right?
Speed skating it's the Dutch curling, where the national trials are literally almost for a gold medal.
Yeah, we'll have to see this, and hopefully some other people can break through. And you look at the world; they do very, very well at the World Championships. And when I did the preview, I mentioned it. Like on the men's side, they're incredibly strong. They have the top-ranked skater in every discipline. The women's side was a little bit more wide open. The Japanese are very strong on the 500. But then again, this was one of the events that they weren't ranked number 1 heading into, and they ended up sweeping the podium. So that tells me that they have trained everything towards peaking for right now.
So you're a speed skater, long track, and you're not Dutch? Good luck. All right.
Yeah.
Wait, go ahead. What are you going to say?
I'm just great.
Before we say goodbye, Duane, because of the new technology, if you're watching this on video, youtube.com/sports podcast network, we actually have a medal standings. We have a medal standings live. Germany, 2 gold medals. Then that's with Wellinger with the great ski jump that he did. So Germany, 2 gold medals. The other one was biathlon, if I'm not mistaken. Netherlands, 1 gold, 2 silver, 1 bronze for 4. The Republic of Korea, 1 gold for 1 medal. Sweden, 1 gold, 1 medal. Norway, 3 silver, 1 bronze in 4. So if it was in Canada, Norway would be second because we count the total, right? Not the gold.
Don't get me going on that. Yeah, the IOC tradition is to pick the gold medalist first. Whoever has the most golds is leading.
Whatever is most
over here in
favorable to
North
us.
America, we just pick total medals because for some reason we think a third is the same as a first.
It's about participation. So Czech Republic, 1 bronze. Finland, 1 bronze. OAR, 1 bronze. And that about wraps it up for the medal standings after day 1. Not yet a medal for Canada, but Duane, this might be coming on day 2. Before we say goodbye, let's look. I can pretty much guarantee there's going to be a day 2 medal for Canada.
But between the moguls and the big SlopeStyle, I would assume that at least one of those guys will get on that podium. Yes.
So we have medal. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say that you could almost put the medal on the board already for team figure skating as well. And if they were to if they pull ahead of the Russians anymore tonight when the ice dance happens, and they could very well do that, then you would, again, that one's almost a sure thing at this point too. But still lots to go, and we'll watch this with interest. I wouldn't panic here in Canada yet because really I would have. Short track is an event that you can never predict anyway, right? Like you could look at that and say there's a medal chance here, and you would have hoped, and they probably would have thought there would have been one coming there, but you couldn't really put it on the board pre and the 3,000 meter. Again, a medal chance, but not a medal lock by any means. So these aren't anything to panic about if you're a Canadian listening to this and thinking, we're back to the old days when we choke. That didn't happen.
Day 2 medals up for grabs. Men's downhill. That's 11 a.m. PyeongChang time. That's 9 p.m. for us tonight. There's a men 10-kilometer sprint biathlon. Medal up for grabs there. Medal up for grabs 15K men and 15K skiathlon. Skiathlon. Yeah, in the air. Doing it with hoverboards. It's 1994 all over again. No, skiathlon. Cross-country skiing, the men's. We have curling, of course, but there's no medal there. We have as well the continuation of the team event in the figure skating, freestyle skiing as well. Medal up for grabs there in the men's, and the women's qualification and final will take place as well today. We have some hockey game in the women's side, Duane, starting today. Finland versus the United States on day 2. Canada versus OAR as well. I am going to watch that. and kind of hope for a great beating.
Yeah, there's that. The Finland did actually upset Canada at the World Championships last year. First time the Finns beat the Canadians ever. Maybe that's further indication. We talked about Japan earlier today, how they're improving, that the women's game is starting to close a little bit, although I would not bet anything against there not being a Canada-US final again. That's your lock of the tournament. That's your lock of any four-year event so far right now.
Luge women's singles training run 5 and 6. We have the luge double starting and the men's singles run 3 and 4 with Sam Hedney of Canada 5th after the first two run. The Nordic combined as well, some training of that happening today. Ski jumping, ladies normal hill training will go down as well on day number 2. Snowboard SlopeStyle final will go down today. 3-run final, Canadian contentions, 4 Canadians in the final. Out of 6, it's going to be a 4 out of 12. So that's 1/3 of the actual final is Canadian. That happens today, and the qualification for the ladies slopestyle and one of the last events for the day. It's going to be at 2 a.m. our time. It's the middle of the day, but it's the men's 5,000 meter long trap. We'll be looking for maybe redemption for Denny Morrison. One of the events to take a look at today as well.
All right, fair enough. I'm debating whether I either go for breakfast or I guess it would be dinner, wouldn't it? Or whether I go to sleep now. But
steak and eggs, a little bit of everything. It's kind of dinner and breakfast.
I have a breakfast place around the corner. I think I might do that. I had a little sleep this morning. So there you go. All right, Kevin, I'm going to say goodbye. As always, I'll let you end the show.
Follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee. You can follow us anywhere on social media at 5 Rings Podcast, at SportPodNet, patreon.com/SportsPodcast Network. Take the pledge, give us a pat on the back, and make sure that we feel appreciated enough to continue to do this at this level. And as well, youtube.com/SportsPodcast Network every day during the Olympics, 10 a.m. for your 5 Rings Fixed. Just like in the beautiful words of John on Twitter yesterday, talking about our show, the Olympic experience is truly not complete until you give the 5 Rings a try. And until then, have a great Olympics.